Welcome to another episode of the No Ordinary Cloth podcast, where we are stitching together a tapestry of textile innovations, one episode at a time. This is your host, Millie Tharakin. Today, we're speaking to our very special guest, Anastasia Pistofidou. She is many things, as you will learn from this pod, but primarily a Greek architect turned visionary textile educator and maker. Join us as we uncover her approach to textile and fashion education, which is radically different from a university program, and learn about Fabricademy, the revolutionary global educational program she has pioneered, where you get to experiment and innovate at the intersection of textiles, biology, and digital fabrication. The Academy promotes an open source culture, and Anastasia tells us why she believes this is so important. And it fosters a community that collaborates globally, bringing people from diverse walks of life and expertise together to develop textiles that solve some of our global challenges. If you would like a taste of emerging fields such as e-textiles, biofabrications of materials, soft robotics, digital fabrication, wearables, skin electronics, Fabricademy offers this and more. You often hear me mention that innovation happens at the intersection of different disciplines, cultures, and walks of life. I truly believe that, and it has been my approach in my research and work. Anastasia's story is a testament to merging diverse disciplines from architecture to biology, heritage craft to digital fabrication to redefine the future of textiles while also empowering others to do the same. Her work as a researcher, maker, architect, and educator weaves together creativity, sustainability, and innovation in a unique and inspiring way. So dive in with me to hear about Anastasia's journey and the impact her work has had on the world of textiles and beyond. A quick note to the listeners, you might hear a baby in the background during the pod. This is Anastasia's baby girl who is sometimes missing her mom. I want to say a big thank you to Anastasia's grandma for looking after the baby so Anastasia could speak with us today. Hi, Anastasia. Welcome to the No Ordinary Cloth podcast. And thank you so much for your time today. I've been really keen to have you on this podcast because you literally started an academy that teaches people different processes and methods for creating extraordinary fabrics. And in previous episodes here, we've talked about e-textiles and biotextiles. And I've had people actually ask me, where can I start learning some of these things? Where do I find out about all these emerging technologies? And I always point them straight to you and Fabric Academy program. I actually had the opportunity to visit Barcelona and the Fabric Academy earlier this year, which was amazing. It's like a maker's playground. I loved it. There's just so much experimentation and research going on. So I'm very thrilled to have you with us today to learn more about the Academy. So let's dive right in and start with getting to know you personally a little bit more, Anastasia. Where did you grow up and what was life like as a young teenager?
Thank you, Millie, for this invitation. It's great to create this interactive space for discussing emerging topics. I'm very proud also to present Fabricademy, which is a very personal and very intimate project that is done in collaboration with many, many different people. I am a Greek architect and I grew up in Thessaloniki in Greece. Most of my time in my childhood, I was tinkering and playing, and I had a lot of arts and crafts in my childhood continuously. So I tried and experimented with the chemistry and experiments, and I also did a lot of casting with clay and with mask making, papier mache, all of the crafts. They were very present in my childhood. But also at the same time, I come from a family that has a very big history in the textile industry because my grandfather opened the first retail shop of fur and leather in Thessaloniki. So it's been more than 100 years business. So the textiles and the fashion industry were core into the family business. I didn't choose to continue with the retail, but somehow I made a path that puts all of the dots together and connects it through education.
You trained as an architect first, right? So could you just tell us how you then kind of found your way back and connected those dots back to textiles?
Yeah, it's actually when the innovation happens when you take practices from one discipline and you apply them as an experiment to other disciplines. And this is when I understood that I went a little bit into lightweight structures and ephemeral architecture using textiles. And then I understood that there was a big gap in innovation for the textile and fashion industry using manufacturing technologies that you can find in a fab lab. And I started in 2013 the first fab textiles lab within a fab lab. So it was very pioneer at that moment. And many fab lab, because the fab lab is a network, it's a worldwide international network. There are more than 2,500 fab labs all over the world. It is not a franchise model. Everyone can actually open a fab lab, whether it is a non-profit, whether it is in a library or it's a foundation or it's a company. You can have this enabling environment. And within this context, I opened the research on textiles and later on materials, on sustainable materials. So not only what we are manufacturing, but how we are manufacturing, with which materials, where does the material come from, was a very big topic. And currently it's a big burst into different ways of designing with the material in being informed by the material.
You mentioned your connection in your family with textiles, which is wonderful. I wondered if you had any item of clothing or a piece of fabric that had a very personal connection to you or held very personal memories for you.
It's funny because I'm this type of person that keeps the clothes for more than 20 years. So I am still wearing clothes from my grandmother and my mother. And somehow I think that this is an example of slow fashion as well. I'm more interested into the quality and the timelessness, and this is how I have this wardrobe with things that they are all very, very important
Yeah.
for me. And sometimes difficult to get rid
Yeah,
of.
yeah. It's so precious. Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
but there is one piece that is not a garment. It is a piece that I made using, it's a bed sheets. I made them using the batik method. But batik is traditional wax printing method. It's an Indian method. So I wrote a story that I invented a story and I wrote, handwritten it
Oh,
using the
wow.
batik method on a bed sheet. It is a story for putting you to sleep, let's say. And this one, I think it's a piece that I have big feelings about because I spend a lot of time making it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've done batik myself, and it's really difficult because the wax is just dripping. It's like trying to draw with water, isn't it? And that would have taken up a lot of skill and time, but I can imagine how precious that is. Thank you for sharing that, Anastasia. And while sort of either growing up or even now, are there any mentors, teachers, or people in your life that's really inspired your work and guided your work over the last couple of decades?
Well, I remember that most of my time in the school, I would spend it in the attic, school attic, where was this art teacher that I was very much in love with
Oh,
because she would make all of the different example, like she would be very genuine and very creative. And I did with her a lot of classes as clubs. So we did like fashion design, portraits, nature. We did all of these different art classes. So I think that she had a big influence in me. And then when I entered in the world of textile education, I think that one person that really influenced was Susan Lee, the inventor of bio couture. and the founder of Biofabricate, because she released this open source way of making your own vegan bacterial cellulose leather. And she was very inspiring for me.
And we will definitely talk more about your work in biomaterials as well. You mentioned earlier about how innovation happens when you bring these disciplines together, different knowledge and skills from disciplines together. It sounds really easy to say that, but it's really difficult. But you seem to very seamlessly sort of transition between these spaces of architecture and textiles and biology, technology, fabrication. How have you learned to move through these spaces and bring it all together?
Well, nowadays there are new career paths, and you can also find people that they are architects of the body, so body architecture, and this is a completely new discipline. And we are talking about emergence of new disciplines due to digitization as well. We have a lot of new skills and a lot of new tools to work with, and I think that we can invent our own career path and invent new professions. And this is in combination with the fact that the fashion education is quite traditional, and it doesn't equip so much. It's not like it doesn't, it's not considered to be a science. Fashion education is not a science. So that was the let's say the urge for me to find ways to put science into fashion.
Fabulous. So that brings us to the Fabric Academy program itself. This is such a unique program. What was your motivation to set up this educational program, and what was your vision for this academy?
Fabricademy is quite disruptive because it's a program that happens in an out of the school. It can happen anywhere.
Hmm.
And also it happens in a peer-to-peer collaborative way as a network, which means that you have Barcelona, Amsterdam, Bilbao, Leon, Ecuador. You have places all over the world that simultaneously are running the program in a networked way. They combine the online teaching and online lectures with the hands on bottom up approach of making. And it is part of the wider Fab Lab network and the Academy of Everything, let's say. And I think that the reasons why we established this program with Vere Basile and Cecilia Raspandi, my colleagues from the Fab Lab network, is because we thought that there was a big gap in the textile education. And there was also at the same time a big opportunity to create a program that goes out of conventional types. And it's also a program that doesn't look into ages. Everybody can attend the program. We have participants from 16 years old to 75 years old. And we say that the reason why is that if we're bringing new technologies under this denominator of new technologies, everybody is a beginner. So we can put together someone very young with someone that has already experience in the industry, and this also makes this environment very very interesting when you collide different species, let's say.
And that also creates such an innovative environment, isn't it? The exchange of knowledge between people from such diverse backgrounds and walks of life.
Yeah, diverse not only in experiences due to their age, but also in their skills due to the backgrounds that they come from very diverse backgrounds, but also cultural diversity because they also come from very different countries. So it's very interesting, especially the week of natural dyes that we have in the program, where you see the different colors that they can make in Brazil and the different colors that you can make in India. Or so it's
Yeah.
very much linked into the local culture as well.
Oh, it must be fascinating to kind of run a program and just see the myriad versions of projects that come out of that very same project because it's a global network. How exciting to be an educator in that space. What are some of the courses that are taught on the program? So I understand it's a 6-month program that's run, and the first 3 months there are sort of skills and practical lessons that students learn, and the next 3 months is focused on their projects. So what do they learn in the first 3 months?
Yes, in the first 3 months, we have these micro modules, weekly modules of skills. And we call it the tasting course. So you have 1 week to get introduced to a topic, to taste it, to see what you will do. And they're always combined lecture and hands-on tutorials and workshops and learning, and also programs, different digital programs like 3D modeling or parametric design. And then after you have to apply it in a small project per week. The topics, they are divided into 4 categories, so 4 research pillars. The first one is sustainability, and sustainability both in design, like open source circular fashion, zero waste fashion, but sustainability also into materials, so bio-based solutions, biomaterials, bioplastics, bioleathers, and also in the colors. We do natural dyes, but also bacterial dyes. And then also we have storytelling in the sustainability aspect, which is how you can do social innovation, how you can engage with the community. This is in the sustainability. Then we have the digital fabrication, which is within the Fab Lab network and the labs, the laboratories. You can learn skills like 3D modeling, laser cutting, 3D printing on fabrics, molding and casting, leather molding, which is very old ancestral technique. And then you have the electronics, which is the wearable technology research agenda. You have new ways of creating electronics, that they are flexible, that they are textile based, that they are close to the body, and they can augment your senses. They can be used for performers, for costume designers. We have a lot of costume designers that they are participating in the course. And then you have the innovation narratives, which is how you learn to do some grounded research, how you can make an impact with your project, what is the story around your project. So, how your ideas can become a narrative for having an impactful outcome. And these are the 13 weeks. And then after the tasting comes the main course, which the main course is the personal project development with mentorship. And it is a very made to measure program, because we have a pool of mentors, and according to the each participant, we drag from the different mentors which one is the one most, let's say, matching the topic of the participant. That means that it's a very flexible program, and every year it mutates and and evolves and changes.
And how many students do you have globally in a year? How do you sort of make sure everyone's taken care of?
Exactly. So it is interesting because the distributed part allows us to have very close one-to-one mentoring with the students locally. So you have local instructors, and you have around 5, 6 to 10 students per location. And then in total, you have around 50 students. So it's a small cohort. We love small because small is more curated. And we also follow up after the student finishes the program. We follow up with different opportunities according to the topics that each one tackles.
How accessible is this program to people who might not have any experience in textiles or fabrication? Who are the types of students that join?
The program doesn't have any specific prerequisites. You don't necessarily need to come from fashion. We have computer scientists that they like textile. We have biologists that they also know how to make patterns. We have sociologists or even business marketing profiles. There are many costume designers, and there are also material researchers. So it's very, very open and accessible, because it's not the typical school. It's a program that you can do even if you want to dedicate less time and have it like a hobby. You could do it. If you want to really create your career and then after get some funding, more entrepreneurial, or open a company, you can also dedicate more time to the program. So it's really something made to measure. You can make it, you can customize it according to what you need.
You mentioned quite a few of the skills that students would go away at the end of this program, but what is the sort of mind shift that you're hoping will happen in those 6 months in doing this program?
So this is very important because when the participants start with their personal project development, we encourage them not to see a project that has a beginning and an end, but we just encourage them to see it as the beginning of their future career path. And this, we work with them throughout the 3 months in order to create a higher level of engagement. So that's also the reason why we have a very great rate of success in finding like students that they win prizes afterwards or that they win further funds to develop further their project. And also the way that it is structured, it makes it quite intimate in order to, if you have a problem as a student, your problem is also my problem. So you have many people trying to solve your problem. You're not alone. And that's also something that it reflects also to the community. The main part that we focus on is a sustainability in terms of production. So we are not training students to become, let's say, employees in a big fashion company. We train students to make the transition to more sustainable practices. We train the students to be more reflective and critical, and to also change the current fast fashion industry and to make more innovation and create more engagement. So the projects that come out from Fabric Academy, they are very unique according to the context and the background of each person, and also according to where they want to head afterwards, what they want to do.
And where do they head out? Could you give us a couple of examples of what the students have gone on to do next and where they've developed their career?
Yeah, so since the content of the program is very innovative in the textile education, we have a lot of students that afterwards they choose the path of becoming educators themselves. So many participants, they make courses, they teach biomaterials in different countries, they teach digital fabrication. We have also participants that they are teachers themselves from the beginning, so they get training to implement it later on in their curricula. So we have this type of participant, but also we have others that they do costume design. So you will have collaborations with dancers or with different shows, theater. So they have their own company and they are creating costumes. And we have quite a few that they are 3D printing fashion
Oh,
pioneers.
lovely.
Yeah, so quite a few that did collaborations with big fashion brands and they did the technical, let's say, design and 3D printing of garments. And some of them, they all also have their own brand in 3D printed fashion. And then there are a lot of participants that they are doing biomaterials for different applications. Let's say they have their own brand that is sustainable. So they have clients that ask for different biomaterials. And also we have the profile that is the profile when the participant finishes the program, they become instructors and they run Fabric Academy in different locations.
Wow. So it's just growing. You're creating future sort of educators and spreading the philosophy of this incredible approach to education and innovation.
And it is completely open source, because this is also the different mindset that we want and the different model that we want to promote. We are saying that if the world currently is under an emergency due to the human impact on the environment, then we need to collaborate all together and work for solutions. So we really promote the open source values and culture. In this sense, the program is completely accessible and open for everyone. For everyone. If someone wants to come in the lab and get the mentorship and get access to all the tools and the materials, then they need to sign up. But if they want to attend it on their own or get some insights, they have all of our resources open and accessible.
That is so generous. And yes, I can definitely see that open source culture is a core part of your philosophy in setting up this academy, and you do make it available for everyone. That is beautiful. It's very rare to see that these days, but yeah, it's fantastic that you do that and you're so determined to keep it that way.
Yes, we even have a cycle of inspirational talks that happens every now and then online, and we have all the recordings on the website. It's inspirational talks. I call it learning from the industry. So normally we invite someone with more experience to give some inspiration and show different possible career paths to the current participants.
And would it be all right if I shared some of these links in the show notes as well so the listeners can also access it and have a look?
Yes, of course you
Oh,
can.
fantastic. Thank you. If you had to name three skills that you think students need to drive innovation, no matter what they go on to do next, what are three skills that students need for future careers?
So, in terms of skills, I think that there are different types of skills. For us, the most important is the personal awareness. And I think that this is quite different from
Absolutely.
other educational, let's say, institutes, because we believe that it's better to equip someone with self-awareness tools to understand where he wants to go, to make it more clear. And because personal awareness brings also later more engagement into making a new enterprise, engagement into starting a startup, no, or to making a business. And what we see nowadays is a lot of great ideas from different people, but what they do most of the times is that they create an idea, they create a startup in order to be able to quickly sell it to a bigger venture. We don't want to have people selling their ideas quickly, many ideas, and selling them. We want people to engage with their ideas and create an ecosystem around it. So self awareness is driving the personal path for the students. And the way we do it is that we are not in a classroom where the student is passive and you always have to tell them what to do. It is their choice to deep dive more in the topics that they want. We are there to support and to give them more and more if they want to dive deeper. The second skill, I would say, is to be aware at least of the current trends and the current needs and the gaps, and to be surfing on the wave somehow. There are moments, there are tipping points, and these are the moments where you need to be there in the correct moment to make something successful, no? So being informed and being able to contextualize and being able to also envision is also something very important. Then there are also a lot of green skills and hard skills, digital skills, that these are for us as a technical foundation. So you will have a lot of biofabrication, biomaterials. You will have 3D modeling. It's very nice to see students that they don't know how to 3D model, that they finish the course and then afterwards they can use fluently the computer as a new design language, and also programming. So these are like the hard skills that they learn.
You mentioned biofabrication. Maybe I think people are quite familiar with digital fabrication. Would you be able to explain for our listeners what biofabrication means and examples of that?
Yes, biofabrication is an emerging field that is coupled with material driven design methodologies, and it implies the use of biological material, whether it is man made or it is grown naturally, into the design process. So we are talking about growth of mycelium, the root part of fungi, for creating, let's say, insulation composites, biocomposites. Or we are talking about bacterial cellulose growing vegan leather, using living organism for making colors. So biofabrication could also be working collaboratively with living organisms in order to co-design. The designer nowadays doesn't is not a human, but it's an ecosystem, and within the ecosystem we also have nature. We also have living other species that they are participating in the design and the fabrication process.
Continuing on with biomaterials, you've done a lot of work in the area of creating new recipes for making biomaterials and bioplastics, right? I think you've got this open source resource called Bioplastic Cookbook and various others, which is such a great starting point for anyone who wants to kind of get cracking. And it almost feels like you can do this in your kitchen at home. Some of these recipes feels very accessible to try and create these new materials.
Yes, somehow we want to take science out of the lab and we want to make it more accessible. And we also say that the difference between art and science is the fact that you are double measuring the things. And you can repeat the
Yeah, yeah.
experiment. So it's a little bit about our also mission to open this black box of technology and make it a little bit more accessible for everyone, and to really bring awareness through making visible how things are made. I think that at that moment in 2015, I started with the biomaterials, and we did these open source guidebooks, cookbooks, The Secret of Bioplastics, the Bioplastic Cookbook. And then I started working with food waste, and I never imagined that I would have been working with food waste for 5 years. Because it is in the concept of circular economy and also in the concept of regenerative design, using the waste as a resource. And so I ended up making a lot of projects with food waste from local restaurants. And it was a very also successful project called Remix El Barrio, developed at IAC in Fabula, Barcelona, where we also have video tutorials of the recipes working with food waste.
What are some of the challenges of scaling up some of these materials? It's great to kind of experiment and find these fascinating materials that you make in a lab or at your home. But when students want to take that out and develop it further, what are some of the challenges to actually make it a material that's usable and adopted in a larger scale?
Well, believe it or not, the greatest challenge for bringing these disruptive innovations into the market is the personal engagement of the participant, of the researcher, that wants to bring forward the idea to the market. Because most of the times we can do well in the laboratory environment or in a smaller scale, but scaling up looks like a big mountain that we are not ready to hike. And hiking a big mountain maybe requires some training sometimes. And the training is, in this case, coupling and making collaborations with others that they have the business aspect, or they have the production aspect more present and more into their, let's say, backpack of knowledge. And I think that in the times that we have people that they are more engaged with their ideas, it's where innovation can really happen, because the road to open a new business in general for everything is quite difficult.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love that you pointed out this personal awareness as a skill. No one really talks about that. Without that, no matter what you do, it doesn't really, you don't really take it any further than your comfort zone of creating it.
Yeah.
Doesn't really benefit society either. I wanted to talk a bit more about your personal work in research. I know you talk a lot about the importance of crafts, and there's a sense of urgency to preserve the deep knowledge that we've gathered over, many years, the heritage crafts that we have, and they're often disappearing. And this is a topic that's really close to my heart and what my research has been involved in as well. Could you share your thoughts on the role of craft today, and how do we bring together craft and digital fabrication processes to innovate and create new materials or expressions? So if you could start with what crafts means for you and how you bring craft and digital fabrication process together.
So I think that we need to look back into our history, human history, and understand that the human has always been crafting and making things. And this knowledge is coming from the beginning of time. And of course, we can also consider that new tools and new technologies are another type of
Hmm.
craft, if you want it, because it's about making. And then I will quote back Mr. Fuller, that he said that you cannot replace the existing way that things function. In order to reinvent something, you need to make the current thing obsolete. So he says that in order to bring innovation, we need to radically change and make things obsolete. But I think that I have been reflecting a lot on his quote, because I think that who am I to make some current technology obsolete if I am not aware of how everything works, of how the system works? So I think that first we need to understand where we come from, understand our heritage, our past, our culture, and then we will be able to have the grounds, to have the base knowledge in order to make the current things, the current obsolete. So I think that the craft for me is not only the ancestral, is not only the old and the manual. I think craft is making
Hmm.
and being able to get expertise into making something. And it implies also the contemporary tools and technology. So maybe you are 3D modeling and you are a craftsman. It can be like that. So crafts and digital fabrication, they are paired, because digital fabrication enables us to make things. But also we need to see it as a synergy, because most of the times still there is a human and computer, or human and machine interaction, and there's a co-working, and you will always need to refine or retouch or do the finishing, or the first part or the last part. So it's kind of a collaboration between technology and the heritage. It's kind of a collaboration between the hand and the machine, the human and the robot somehow.
I like that you mentioned robot. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about how AI is coming in and gonna just take over all our jobs. And, how do you think this new technology that we're trying to get our heads around, how can that influence and inspire us in our making of new materials?
I think that new technologies is and somehow natural evolution that is coming. We had the steam, we had the press, we have the solar energy, nuclear energy, we have AI. Is an evolution. It's a train, and we are all passengers. The problem is that we don't know who is driving.
Right. Yeah.
and we don't have so much also saying on where we are going. And that is my only consideration, the who to whom the data belongs, and why we are training models that we cannot have access to complete control of them. But I really believe that there is a synergy, and it's not that AI will on its own create things. It's again, it's a collaboration. It's a collaboration, and I am optimistic to consider that. Yet I am very skeptical on who owns our data, basically.
But if we get that right, hopefully we can use it as a tool that can really enhance our development and design work as well.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. The I think that it's the most disruptive thing that happened since I don't know 2 decades,
We're all keeping an eye on it.
and they are keeping an eye on
Yes, that's
us.
right. That's more like it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
If you had a magic wand, what would you wish for future education institutes to look like? How will universities or academies teach? And how do people learn in the next 5 to 10 years?
If I had a magic wand, I would like to make education so flexible that we can really implement these learning factories, because nowadays universities, they kept their role of education as it was like 50 years or more, but education doesn't happen in the university. It happens in the screen, or it happens in the Wikipedia, or anywhere. Education is not how it used to be, or how I studied, at least. No, it's not even a generation back. So if I had the magic wand, I would transform all the educational institutes into small local micro factories. So it would be learning and making. And there is a lot of discussion, for example, about having the lectures in as handing out the material to read out of the classroom, so that you can use the classroom for something more creative or something more applied. And I think that this is what's happening. We need to transit to new educational models, and to make peace with the fact that education doesn't happen in the university, basically.
Yeah, that's going to take a lot of work to change that. And I'm sure you sort of faced maybe challenges as well when you were trying to set up Fabricademy. The pushback from maybe educational institutes were like, oh, this is too flexible and like we can't pin it down onto a program. So it's not something that we
Yeah.
understand and that we want to do.
Yeah, of course. Fabricademy is out of the box, so it cannot. It's not under no competition. The higher educational institutes, they don't. They are not competing with us, because we are not a normal education place. But I think that also people nowadays, they should at least question what is the role of the university.
What would be some advice you can give to someone just starting off at a university, like a traditional university, doing their undergrad or masters, whether that's in fashion, textiles, architecture, computer science?
If you're about to start your studies anywhere, I would like to recommend to you not to forget the things that you like. So, for example, if you are going to study fashion design, but you really like cooking, don't put it aside. You can still do the things that you like. And also for me, it was the same. I studied architecture, but at the same time, I studied photography because I really like photography. And somehow I think that it's this convergence, the merging of the different things that we like, that makes us unique.
What would you recommend in terms of resources for listeners to use if they were interested to explore more biofabrication, soft robotics, e-textiles, some of the courses, programs that you mentioned? Of course, your platform is available to everyone, so I'll definitely share those details. Are there any other platforms or maybe YouTube videos or books that you recommend?
Well, of course, there is your podcast.
Oh, so kind.
Yes. So, for example, there is a nice book that is called Entangled Life: how fungi make our worlds and change our mind and shape our futures. That is very, very nice and also very personally written. There is another podcast that's called Next Generation Materials, or there is another podcast that is called Biofabrication from Fungi to Fashion. And there was also this series, I think, on Netflix, which is called Abstract, The Art of Design, that I really liked. Or another one was called A Life in Color. And then, yeah, we have also another book which is called Why Materials Matter, and one other that is called Fabrication, I think.
Oh, plenty of resources for us to dive into. I love that. Thank you.
And of course, there are a lot of videos of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation on circular fashion, and some also reports that they have publicly made that they are very nice.
Thank you. That's really helpful. What is a project you're currently working on? What's keeping you busy?
I am currently working on designing our next bootcamp. Our next bootcamp is a 5-day intensive course that happens in different locations of the world every year in the end of May. So we had one year in Iceland, the other year we had in Italy, in Milano, we had in Barcelona, we had in Paris. Last year we went in Jordan. And so I'm currently working on finding the place that will happen and also making the program, because we combine it with local industry visits and also with getting to know the community. And then I'm also working on food waste series of fashion. So making garments out of food waste and algae. This in the design part. And then I am also working in a new project that is an Erasmus Plus project, which is called Teach for Sustainable Development Goals. And it is about creating new classes and new curricula for sustainable design in textiles.
Full plate there. And a little one to look after as well. The very purpose of starting this podcast was to sort of share about how important it is for different disciplines and different expertise to come together to create innovative and new textiles and fashion and fabrics. And for me, your academy and your work really embodies that and encourages and teaches people how to do that. So it's such a privilege for me to have you and to just learn about your thinking behind why you've set up this program. I love it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
What a fascinating conversation. There was so much more I wanted to chat to her about. But for this episode, I thought I would focus on Fabric Academy, but hopefully I can have her back to dive deeper into the intersection of craft and digital fabrication, which is an area I'm super passionate about. Her eagerness and desire to nurture an innovative approach in others is truly inspiring, and the impact she is having globally in textile innovation is an incredible achievement. I absolutely love her interdisciplinary and open source approach to solving the big challenges we face today. I believe we all hold a piece to solve that puzzle, so it's critical that we share our knowledge and expertise with a wider community and solve that puzzle together. If you're interested to find out more about the Academy and its program, check out the links in the show notes below, and feel free to reach out to Anastasia as well if you want to find out more details or pick her brains about the wide range of work that she does. I absolutely love doing these podcasts because each of these conversations are so energizing and informative, learning about the awesome people who are shifting the textile landscape. One of my dream projects for 2023 was to start this podcast, and I'm deeply thankful to the guests I've had on the pod, as well as each of you, my listeners, who've been so encouraging and supportive. It's been a huge learning curve for me, but it's totally worth it, and thank you for being part of this adventure and shaping this podcast together with me. I would love to hear from you, find out who you are, what you enjoy doing, and what you've enjoyed and not enjoyed about these episodes. Your thoughts and feedback mean the world to me as I plan to bring you more rockstar guests that are changing the textile landscape. So please do connect with me on No Ordinary Cloth via Instagram or email me. Contact details are below. I would love to know who is listening in. Sadly, this is the last episode for this year, but Join me in 2024 for more inspiring stories as we continue to stitch together a tapestry of textile innovations, one episode at a time. Wishing you all a sparkling holiday season, and may the new year be a bright one. This is your host, Millie Tharakin.